Alright, so I actually had a question underneath one of my videos and someone asked, can you make a video on what it's like selling snakes at a reptile shows? What are the rules and regulations? I've had a lot of questions in that area, and what exactly do you need to sell snakes at your local reptile show? And I'd say first, it really depends on where you are living. In the United States, let me tell you, it's completely different than other areas of the world. If you're living over in the UK, they've actually banned the display and sale of the spider ball python, so you really have to pay attention to that. If you're over in Australia, believe it or not, you can go to reptile shows, bring your snakes, but you can't advertise them for sale. And you can't say, you know, I'll sell you this snake, you know, later on in the parking lot or something like that. You can't even put prices on your snakes. It's really strict over there as far as selling snakes. And take a look at this one. This is my bamboo calico. Look at how big this one's getting. And this one's actually going to be at the next reptile show in 1 week. I'm 1 week away from a reptile show. This is the one of my hatchlings from last year, and it is really getting really big. This happens to be a male bamboo calico. Beautiful snake. And I would say here in the United States, there's really no regulations as far as, you know, you don't really need to be licensed to sell at a show, but what you really need to do is you need to contact who's ever setting up the show, like Reptilian Nation or Repticon, at least a month or two early, and tell them you're going to vend at the shows. And then you can reserve a table. You have to buy or rent a table or a booth space. And what I do is I just have one 8-foot table, and for the upcoming show here in a week, that is Reptilian Nation, June 8th and 9th, 2019. I'll have one table with all my snakes that I'll have for sale, and it's $125 for the table. So, you know, if you're thinking about vending at a show, it can be pretty pricey. Some are a little bit cheaper. I've seen some less than $100. I've seen some others where it's more than that. And you can actually get multiple tables or an end booth, or, you know, there's a whole bunch of different arrangements that you can get for different prices as far as what you want for setup. And what I do is I really just focus on one table full of my ball python hatchlings. I'm hoping at some point to get some reticulated python, some super dwarf retics in the show at some point, maybe have a second table. But, you know, there's a lot of people that go to these shows and they pretty much bring their entire pet store to the show, and you walk in, it's like literally walking into a pet store, walking into their booth, and they'll have, you know, aisles and aisles of all this merchandise. It's pretty amazing. It's amazing just to see them set up the night before and get all the stuff ready. And usually what I do is I set up the morning before the show. I get there pretty early and set up because I really don't want my snakes setting overnight for 2 nights. But on that note, they actually do have some really high security at those shows. So what I'll do is I'll set up for the first day and then just leave all my snakes there. Some people pack up some of their snakes because they are kind of worried about them, you know, disappearing. But most of these shows, there's someone there 24/7. They have really tight security, and they keep an eye on, you know, they have locked doors with people in there watching all the merchandise and the snakes, so nothing gets stolen. So, you know, there's a lot of people that have told me, you know, hey, I hear you're going to a reptile show. I hope you sell a lot of snakes and make a lot of money. And really, for me, the selling the snakes is not my #1 goal. As a matter of fact, if selling snakes was my #1 goal, what I do is I just post these on Morph Market, and all my snakes would probably be gone in a month, and I just forget the shows. You know, that's pretty much not what I'm looking for as far as, as a matter of fact, when I go to the shows and I set up my ball pythons, I'm not even thinking about selling snakes or making money, which kind of is, you know, probably not, it's probably counterintuitive as far as most people when they go to the shows. And at the end of the shows, people are like, oh, how'd you do? And I'm like, I had a great show. I don't really care if I sell any snakes at the show. So really, as far as my ball python business, what I'm really focused on as far as making money is making money here on my YouTube channel. And every time you see an advertisement pop up, I make like 1 penny. And let me tell you, all those pennies add up. As a matter of fact, right now, I just passed like 8,200 subscribers. So this year, in the next 12 months, I'm expecting to make more on YouTube than actually selling all my snakes in an entire year. And that is the potential of YouTube. As a matter of fact, when I go to a show, take a look at this. This is kind of my #1 goal. I hand out these cards right here, and you can actually scan that little the QR code, and it goes right to my YouTube channel. Has a little link here. You can go to Chris Hardwick Animal Adventures. It brings you right to my YouTube channel, and I usually hand these out by the hundreds on the reptile shows. And when I was a smaller channel, you know, you could potentially pick up 50 or 100 subscribers real easy, and it made a huge difference. But now, since I'm, you know, a little bit bigger of a channel, and I typically make about 50 subscribers every day, you know, the new subscribers that I add to it doesn't really matter. And you know, once you get up to 10,000 or 100,000 subscribers, handing out cards is almost not even really worth it. But as a small growing YouTube channel, it really boosted my views and my subscribers right after the shows. I noticed a huge jump, especially if you have, you know, like 100 subscribers, you hand out 100 cards and you can almost double your subscribers overnight. It's pretty amazing for a small YouTube channel just to hand out those cards. And those cards, I'd say, were probably, you know, originally was the #1 goal of going to the reptile shows. But I seriously, you know, I go to the reptile shows mainly for the experience, just to kind of see how crazy it really is. There's, you know, like a flurry of people just crowding around my table, and usually there's like a row after row after row of, you know, people just kind of going crazy looking at all my snakes. They're trying to figure out what to buy, and I just love watching the people trying to figure out what they want to invest in, and just all the other tables and the vendors. It's just a really exciting experience. And here on YouTube, you know, I pretty much have been putting out content day after day. I've been releasing videos every single day at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Colorado, and it's been a lot of work. It's almost, I'd say, like working a second job, coming up with the topics and filming and editing and uploading and all the thumbnails and everything. Let me tell you, it is quite a bit of work, but it can definitely pay off more in the long run than my snakes. So that's kind of my goal, and really I think about it as a win-win situation where I can actually share my passion, and it doesn't cost you anything to watch it, and I make money, and you're informed and educated and sometimes entertained. I mean, it's like the perfect ball python business is YouTube, because it's win-win for me and you. You don't have to spend anything. I don't have to worry about did you get your money's worth or anything like that. And selling the ball pythons, I think, is just kind of a side note as far as the hobby for me. So I kind of want to go through some of the things as far as what I set up and what I need for the reptile shows. So essentially, if you want to see me at one of the reptile shows, I've decided just to vend at 2 shows that vend twice a year. So it's the Reptilian Nation and Denver Repticon, and there's 2 spring shows and 2 fall shows. And as a matter of fact, there's the Reptilian Nation coming up in just 1 week, and then a week right after that is Repticon. And it's kind of tough, I'd say, with shows back to back, and a lot of vendors, they'll do one show on one weekend, and especially if they're back to back, a lot of vendors won't actually vend at the second show. But you know, it's almost, I'd say, almost the same amount of people at the second show. And for the vendors that do go and set up a table, it's actually better because you have less competition. I have more people around my table, more people that I can talk to and visit with in the reptile shows at that second show, and that's pretty interesting. So let me show you just a few things that you need if you're thinking about going to a show. If you go to Denver Reptilian Nation, actually, if either one of the shows, what you'll need is this right here. This is a tablecloth, and you can get them. I got this one on Amazon. As a matter of fact, I'll see if I can find the link, and I'll put it in the description below. And what it is it's a tablecloth for an 8-foot table, and the seams are sewed, so it's kind of like a big sock that fits over your table. It looks really professional, and a lot of these shows, they require that you have some kind of a tablecloth. Some of them require that it's black. Some of these shows I've gone to, they don't really specify the color, and you see all kinds of crazy colors like pink ones and yellow ones, a whole bunch of different ones. I think it looks a lot more professional if everyone has like a black kind of a table cover. And as a matter of fact, on these table covers, you can actually get them I guess you call them monogrammed, where you can put your logo in the front and have someone kind of like sew in your name and all that. But I don't really do that. What I like to do is I like to put my name and my YouTube QR code in each display case of my snake. So as a matter of fact, if I have my snake in my display case, right underneath the snake, I have a piece of paper with my name all around it, Chris Hardwick Reptiles, and then right in the middle, a couple little spots, I have the QR code. So if someone comes up with the phone, scans the code, it goes right to my YouTube channel. You know, I'm really trying to promote my YouTube channel at these reptile shows, which is probably, you know, it used to be one of my biggest drivers when I first started out, but now that I'm getting a lot of subscribers and I'm going to a lot of shows, it's not really the number one thing. I think right now the number one thing is just to go and meet the people, meet my viewers. There's a lot of people that come up to the table, hey, I watch your videos every day. That's just really awesome. I get to see a lot of vendors that vend at the same shows, show after show after show, and it's pretty much, I'd say at least 50% of the same vendors going to all the shows and pretty much setting up shop at these reptile shows, and some of them do really well selling a lot of stuff. So let me show you something else. If you go to these reptile shows, there's some supplies that you'll need. One thing you need is some kind of an enclosure for selling your snakes. So if I'm selling hatchlings, I'll sell them with something like this. It's just a little. You can pick these up at. I'm not even sure where I got these. I think I might have got these at Reptile Basics, but they have little holes all along the sides for the snake to breathe. And then what I do is I just put, people put a whole bunch of different substrate in. I just like a paper towel in case they go to the bathroom. You pop the lid on, you write what it is, what the snake is. If it's, you know, a bamboo female, and sometimes you can put the birth date or whatever on there, and then you sell the snake like this. The problem is with this snake right here, it's too big to fit in here. So what I use is, I use a big snake bag, and snake bags are, especially for bigger snakes, what you really need is some big snake bags. And I actually get these at the reptile shows. So I only have a couple bags left. So what I'll do is when I'm setting up at the show, right before it starts, what I'll do is I'll find a vendor that's selling snake bags, and I'll buy it from that vendor, maybe 10 or 20 bags. And then I'll be set for the show in case I sell some snakes. And it helps the guys selling at the shows too. As a matter of fact, when I'm going to the shows, I'll actually have quite a bit of snakes in my display. And I've kind of done a lot of wheeling and dealing where I've traded snakes for like some frogs or tarantulas, or store credit for some stuff in their store, you know, get some bedding or something. And there's a lot of that stuff going on, trade a snake for a snake, or, you know, especially ball pythons. It seems like they're always in high demand and they always have value, and there's money associated with this as far as trading with other vendors at the reptile shows. So let me show you what else I have here. You definitely need some hand sanitizer if you are selling snakes at the show. There's a lot of people that request it. As a matter of fact, they've kind of come out with a new thing where you have to post this little flyer on your display somewhere that tells people about the warnings of salmonella handling snakes. And I'm not sure, I've never really caught salmonella. I've never really seen anyone catch salmonella from their snakes. I'm not exactly sure where it comes from, but I know it's a possibility, especially with small kids. So before anyone handles a snake, I usually give them some hand sanitizer, and then afterwards I give them some hand sanitizer too. And then another thing you want is, if you have hand sanitizer, you want paper towels to kind of wipe off the excess. So I usually have all this kind of gear back behind me on a wire shelf. And that is another thing I bring to the shows, is a wire shelf. And I like to put my jacket on there and my backpack full of food and all my stuff on the wire shelf, just kind of a little storage space instead of just putting it on the ground, because there's really no storage space at a lot of these shows. And speaking of food, there's a lot of these shows that they don't have any people selling food at the shows, and they ban vendors from coming in and selling hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff like that. And if you go to the show and you're selling snakes and you don't have any food, you can be in a world of hurt. Some of these are way out where people don't deliver food, you know, kind of on the edge of town where there's really no fast food restaurants or any like pizza delivery places that'll deliver. As a matter of fact, I kind of got in a bind last show. I brought some power bars and some summer sausages and stuff like that, and it really wasn't enough to fill me up. And I was kind of going through my phone, calling a bunch of places. They're like, oh no, we don't deliver to that reptile show. So you really have to probably stop somewhere and get a sandwich, throw it in your backpack before you vend at the shows. The other thing, if you're selling snakes at a shows, especially if you're doing like the Repticon or the Reptilian Nation here in Colorado, those shows can be incredibly busy, incredibly insane. As a matter of fact, you know, some of them from start to end, you're on your feet for, you know, the whole time. I think they start at 10 and end at 5. So you're talking about, you know, quite a few hours standing on your feet. I think VIP comes in at 9. So it's, you know, it's quite a long time, you know, just stand there at your table, especially if you have a lot of people coming in all the time. And I found that if I'm vending a show by myself, it's hard to get away to go to the bathroom or kind of look around. You know, there's a lot of times when I want to just leave the table and kind of shoot some video of the reptile show, and it's always good to have 2 people, have an assistant at the table that you're selling snakes at. And I know that's not always possible. There's, you know, sometimes I've been solo at these reptile shows, and I'd say that's really tough compared to having someone help you sell snakes. As a matter of fact, you get to the point where, you know, someone at this end of the table wants to see a snake, and you hand out the snake and they're holding the snake, and then someone at the other end of the table wants to hold a snake, and then pretty soon you have 2 or 3 snakes out, and you really don't have enough, you can't really pay attention to where all your snakes are, and it gets a little confusing doing it by yourself. As a matter of fact, when I'm selling snakes by myself at the shows, usually I'll limit it to pretty much like 2 snakes out at a time. I know some people do like 1 at a time, just so they can keep an eye on their snakes. And speaking of people stealing things, there's actually a high risk of people trying to steal your snakes because they have a lot of value in them. And I would say if you're putting up a display at the show and you have something like this, I've seen some tables where they'll have little baby snakes, and they'll have a whole table full of these, sometimes stacked up, and it's so easy for someone just to, you know, to grab one and walk away, that you really have to keep an eye on them. Some people, what they do is they put netting over the top of these so nobody walks away with their snake. And what I actually use is I use some really fancy ARS display cases, and I can show you some of those here in a minute. And what those are is they're long plastic compartments that are pretty heavy. I don't think you could walk away with part of my display case without really being noticed. You'd have to take like 4 or 5 snakes and run away with them. As a matter of fact, in the last show I was at, someone tried to steal a snake in one of those little round things, and let me tell you, people are watching like a hawk. There's so much security at these shows. There's a lot of people, but there's a lot of security. And one guy stole a snake, and before he got to the door, they caught him with the snake, and they said, all right, either you pay double for that snake or we're gonna call the cops. And sure enough, that guy paid double for the snake, which was pretty amazing. And this guy, I don't know if you just noticed it, but he just peed all over me. Oh my. Yeah. So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this snake down and I'm gonna change shirts. All right, so I'm gonna try this again with this big, beautiful albino girl. And I just changed into a sweatshirt. And as a matter of fact, one of my biggest fans bought me a whole wardrobe with multiple shirts, including this sweatshirt with my little brand name on here. Very nice. I really love the black with the red lettering on it. Look at how big this girl is. This one actually had the year off. and I'm planning on breeding her this fall. She's a really big female albino, and she actually had a whole clutch of eggs last year. Albinos 100% het pied, which is pretty cool, and those always sell really good at the shows. So let's see, what else do we have? One other thing you'll need if you're vending in a reptile show is a money belt. It's pretty much, you know, I actually do the credit card, so you can buy a snake with the credit card. Or, you know, a lot of people will pay cash. You don't really want a lot of cash floating around. I put a money belt on my, money bag on my belt, kind of on my belt loop, and this girl is going all over. Where are you going, girl? Hopefully this one doesn't go to the bathroom on me. All right, one more thing that I use at the shows is I use a really high quality plexiglass cleaner for my display cases. As a matter of fact, I get the really high quality the cloths for the plexiglass, because let me tell you, those displays can cost a lot of money and you really don't want to scratch them up. And let me tell you, there's a lot of kids that come up to your display case and they'll have their hands all over the place. There's a lot of fingerprints all over these display cases, and I let the kids, you know, just kind of drool all over the place, and it doesn't really bother me at all. As a matter of fact, at one year I was just set up at the beginning of the show, and I picked up a baby ball python and I didn't even realize it. I was walking across the table, little did I know that that ball python was going to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom over every single display case on my whole table, and it took me quite a while to clean it up. As a matter of fact, there's some people, you know, coming and looking at my snakes, and I was kind of squeezing between the people trying to clean up my display case. That was a pretty memorable moment at one of these reptile shows. So let me show you what those display cases look like. I actually have two different types. One has the smaller compartments for the smaller baby ball pythons, and another one has the bigger ones for some of my big hatchlings that I had from last year. Let me show you those. All right, so this corner has all my show stuff. This is basically everything I bring to the show. So in this box here, in the cardboard box, I have the deli cups for selling snakes. I have the wire rack that I bring to the shows. I have the backpack for like my lunches and stuff. These are all my lights I have in the boxes, and in these two totes I have all my supplies. What I actually have down here, let me kind of just show you everything in here. I have some heat tape that I run along the bottom of the display cases. I actually have a heat control. I think it's like a VE100 that controls the heat under the displays. These are my ARS display cases over here. I have 8 boxes, which actually fills 2 8-foot tables, but I yet to have enough to fill 2 8-foot tables. Essentially what I'm going to do is I have a few hatchlings that I can put in small display cases, and most of my stuff are the bigger hatchlings from last year. I can put in the bigger ones. I'll actually open one of these up and I'll show you what they look like on the inside, but these are the bomb. Let me tell you, put those on the table, and then these boards actually go underneath the displays. I clamp the lights on these boards. It's a really professional setup. Let me show you what it looks like inside one of these boxes. All right, so this is what the ARS caging displays look like for reptile shows. They have like spring-loaded handles, really heavy-duty hardware. These are extremely heavy, really solidly built. These are built like a tank. I can't even believe it. They open up, they're really well insulated. As a matter of fact, when I bring them to the shows, what I do is I put all my snakes in here and I box them up. They have ventilation holes on the side to allow the snakes to breathe, and ventilation holes on the sides over here, all along the front. So the snakes are perfectly fine in there. They can breathe. It's really well ventilated. You can just put them in there, box them up, and essentially what happens is you take the box, you flip it upside down, and then your display cases go on that level and on that level and then in front. So essentially you have like a 3-tiered system. It's basically upside down now, but it's really nice because this box acts as the lift for your displays, and it just stacks in a 3-tiered system. It looks really, really professional. And it locks up nice and secure, which is really nice. So if anyone wants to look at a snake, you unlock it, and then this slides over here like this, and then these just slide right here, and you can reach right in and get your snake. And this is what I really like, is I like to put my name in here and everything, because if someone comes up and they want to take a picture of my snake, sure, go ahead, because it's advertising for my company and my YouTube channel too. So it's really nice. And then these are essentially for hatchlings. And what actually happened is I got to the point where my hatchlings, I pretty much sold them all, and I started trying to put my bigger snakes in here. And the Department of Agriculture actually came to one of my shows and said those snakes are way too big for this display case, and I was forced to upgrade. And what I did is I bought these. Take a look at these. These can hold a really big, almost an adult ball python can fit in here. These are really big enclosures. And the funny thing is that the key for one fits the other. Pretty much all the keys are exactly like the same for ARS. So if you ever lose your keys, you can go to someone else who has an ARS display case, and they can help you get into your stuff. On the downside, anyone has the key to ARS, they can actually get into any ARS enclosure, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a pro and con. I really didn't like the idea of having them all keyed the same until I had a bunch of different sizes and a bunch of different cases. And then I got to the point where, you know, I really don't want to go around looking for keys, different keys to unlock every single one. And now I'm glad that they're all keyed the same. Otherwise, it could be really a nightmare. Alright, so there you have it. That is everything behind the scenes for a reptile show as far as I'm concerned. And this is what it's all about right here. Take a look at that beauty. Just hatched out of the egg. This is a bamboo ball python getting ready to go into his first shed. Isn't that a cutie? Oh, I love these ball pythons. And a lot of people, they sell them just, I'd say most snakes at the shows, they're just pretty much just a little bit older than this, fit in the small display cases really well. And sometimes you'll find some people like me holding back some stuff from last year. As a matter of fact, I was gonna hold a lot of that stuff back to breed, and then all my racks filled up with snakes. I'm like, I need to get rid of some of these snakes because I don't have any room for the snakes I want to keep from this year. And it's always kind of a challenge. What do I sell? What do I keep? What do I keep breeding? Do I want to expand my business? You know, how deep do I want to get into this? And at this point, I think, you know, I'm producing about 100 snakes a year, and that is pretty much the limit for me as far as how many animals I can take care of in my free time. You know, last year I was up to 150 snakes, and you know, at that level it does take quite a bit of time to go through and clean and feed and take care of all your snakes. And this is actually the best time of year because I have very few snakes. It doesn't take a lot of work, and probably the number one part of the ball python hobby that I really like is hatching out the snakes. Number two, probably the most exciting part, is going to the reptile shows. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope I'll see you at the next reptile show. It's just 1 week away. I am really excited about it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.